So with George North retiring at the end of this year's Six Nations, and no one outstanding candidate who's demanding getting picked in that position, I'm going to look through who could potentially fill that gap and what type of partnership we could be looking at. My name's Christian and this is the Welsh Sports Podcast. So I'll start by just going through the players and giving their strengths and weaknesses, and then I'll see what type of partnerships I think could potentially work and what we might see moving forward. So just to start, I'll start with Nick Tomkins. He's probably been the first choice 12 for over the last 2 years maybe. He definitely was for the World Cup, and he's been one of the main partners that George North had over their tenure at centre. A lot of people sort of are a bit hot and cold on Tomkins. I've never been a massive fan myself. I've criticised him quite a lot on this channel, but he does have some abilities. Obviously, he's a mainstay in that Saracens midfield, which just shows that there is quality there because they're just an absolute quality outfit. He's got pretty decent hands, and seems to be quite good at drawing defenders to him and putting other people in space. Not the biggest ball carrier, but he's definitely willing, and he always gives 100%. But he's a little bit erratic. I think he sort of tends to just play on his own at times, tries to do too much on his own. Although he's got some nice hands to pop people into space when he's like shipping the ball out, I don't think his passing is particularly great. He's good at reading defences, but he's not great at making the tackle. But I think that's just mainly due to his size, because he's very undersized at 12 for sort of the modern era of rugby. Moving on, we've got Owen Watkin, who's also had an opportunity in this year's Six Nations. I thought he had a pretty good Six Nations. In the first game against Scotland, he was pretty much nowhere to be seen, but he didn't touch the ball when Wales didn't get the ball, so hard to blame him for that. He's absolutely brilliant in defence. He's very, very good at those trademark rips. He's good over the ball, and he's a solid tackler, good at reading defence. He doesn't have an awful lot of pace, and my biggest criticism of him is he hasn't really been much of an offensive weapon. But you know, at 6'2" and 15 stone, he's a pretty strong ball carrier, not like a massive natural explosive one, but he can get you over the gain line, pretty sturdy. He's had 41 caps now, which is quite surprising because you can never really think of any period of time when he's had a long run in the team. I think against France, when he was playing alongside Roberts, that was the best we've seen him play for Wales for a long time, if ever. I think Roberts is a good sort of partnership for him. They offer something different, and I think Watkin definitely helped Sam Costello in that game, because that was one of Costello's better games as well. So Watkin is probably the more natural successor at the moment. Also, we have Joe Roberts. He's 23, so he's still young. He's about 6 foot, and he's got 2 caps, 1 try. Roberts sort of offers a little bit different to everything else we've got in the team at the moment. He's quite a creative player on the outside. He's really good at finding space for himself and for other players. He can put passes together, which brings other players into play. He's got really good hands, got a good offloading game. He's good at reading defences, and his tackling's pretty sturdy. Didn't have his best game in defence in the France match where he won his 2nd cap, but that was, I think we might need to give him the benefit of the doubt for that one, because he had an issue with I think it was his ankle or his knee really early, and that probably took a couple of inches of pace off him. But I think he could be an option going forward. He's also got that left peg kicking, which obviously is something that is very useful in the back line, takes the pressure off the outside half, and we know that Gatland likes that because he's mentioned that a few times, and he liked it when Jonathan Davis had the same thing. So yeah, Joe Roberts is the sort of second outstanding candidate, I think. Then we move on to the player that I think has probably the biggest upside, and that is Mason Grady. Obviously, he's been playing a lot on the wing. He's basically been exclusively on the wing this season for Cardiff. Didn't have the best Six Nations considering he was coming in with a lot of hype and some really good form that he'd been building up over the season. And he didn't really get deployed at all by Gatland until the last game against Italy, where he came on at centre with a bit of time, and he actually showed that he was maybe something that the team was missing, a big player who can just truck it up and get us over the gain line. He actually played 12, which I've never seen him play before, so that was interesting. I wonder if that's somewhere Gatland sees him going in the future and in the long haul. But the reason I say Grady's probably got the biggest upside is, I mean, he's 21, and you think he's been around now for a year or just over a year or two, I guess. 6 caps and 1 try, but he's 6'5" and 17 stone. But he is rapid as well, so he's an absolute pure athletic machine. I always refer to him as just an athletic freak because he's just on a different plane to just us mere mortals generally with his athleticism. His biggest criticism is he's still very raw. He's prone to a mistake, especially when he's playing in that centre and he's got to make defensive reads. I think that's where he struggled, and that's probably the reason why we've seen him operating more on the wing and why he hasn't probably found himself getting starts for Wales at the moment. But that to me is something you learn as you're playing and as you get coached. So now that North is gone, I think there's a good chance that he could take up that mantle of that big ball carrier at 13, and you might just need to take sort of a few of the lumps and a few of the mistakes he's going to make for his upside, and just hope that over time he can learn and you can coach those things out of him, which I think he's, I think he's well got all the talents to do it. And like I said, only 21, so there's plenty of time for him to develop and learn the game. But I'm really hopeful that he can start playing 13 or in the centre anyway, really, for Cardiff. And as much as he's been great on the wing, I think Wales would benefit more from him playing 13, and as well as Cardiff, because I think they don't have anything that's anywhere near what he can offer in the centre. So outside of the current squad, the most probably obvious player to talk about would be Johnny Williams. He's someone who's been on the fringes recently as well, been involved in Warren Gatland's warm-up squad, and Gatland obviously wanted to give him an opportunity because he'd been injured and he hadn't really played much rugby, but Gatland still brought him in and gave him some rugby and give him opportunities within the squad. He's someone who I was sort of touting going into the World Cup before Tomkins had that good spell and sort of cemented a partnership with North. He was a player who I was sort of touting to be inside centre going forward. I think he's got all the minerals. He's got a similar sort of frame to like Grady, sort of that tall, rangy, powerful running style. He's got the outside break ability and he's got the ability to get you over the gain line, but he's also got some underrated distribution skills. He can definitely put players into space. He's good at fixing defenders because he's such an abrasive runner. He draws defenders in, which is obviously a positive. The biggest problem with Johnny Williams has always been, and I think unfortunately for him will always be, just injuries. He seems to have a career plagued with them. And whenever he seems to get on a run or he's looking like he will be within the squad, he sort of picks up an injury, an untimely injury. And that is probably partly to do with the way he plays. He's very aggressive, very, ball carrying oriented, but he's just had a lot of bad luck also as well. You only have to look, he made his debut in 2020 and he's only had 7 caps, yet you would say he's probably always realistically should have been in and around that squad setup, especially with the lack of options at 12 really, since Joe Hawkins has gone. I think he would definitely be someone that Gatland would look at. The only thing that might put Gatland off is he at 27 with the history of injuries. Is he going to be someone who you want to build around and bank on being there for the next World Cup and for the coming Six Nations, etc.? I think the thing is, you could invest a lot of time into him, and then once his contract comes up, the chances are he's going to be looking at maybe a bigger money move elsewhere. The rumours are last year, I believe he turned down a big money move to leave the Scarlets because he wanted the opportunity to play in the World Cup and stuff, and he turned down a big move for that. But I would tend to think now, coming more towards the later stage of his career, he might want an opportunity to cash in, and there's no way he's going to get just under 20 caps in that time. Very highly unlikely anyway, so that could be another thing that Gatland might look at. If they do get rid of the 25 cap rule, then that obviously does not matter, but it's just something that builds into the thinking of the coaches and something they have to build with the squad process moving forward, because obviously now Gatland said we're building for the future, we're looking at players who are going to be in the next World Cup cycle. So is Williams going to be one of them? I don't know. Also, something that's hampered him sort of throughout his career, but particularly this season, is his discipline. He tends to give away a lot of penalties, and particularly this year, he's given away a lot of cards as well, red cards as well this year, which is obviously not good, and it's something you cannot afford to do at international level. But like I said, for him, his battle will always be with the fitness, so let's hope he stays fit and we'll see what happens. Now for some players that are more on the fringes, but are definitely well worth speaking about. The first one I'm going to look at is Kieran Williams. Now, a lot of people have commented, particularly when I've talked about centres and options in the midfield in my videos. A lot of people, I would imagine Ospreys fans, comment about Kieran Williams, how they'd like to see him in the squad. Gatland, obviously, there must be something about Williams that Gatland doesn't really like the look of. I think it's generally his size. Although he runs like a bull and runs hard and runs good lines, he's undersized slightly for that position. He's only 5'10" and he is 15 stone, but I think Gatland looks at that. I think size means something to Gatland. Also, we've had a Six Nations where a lot has been made about our size as a team and our physicality, and I think bringing in a smaller 12 might be an issue. I'm not too sure. I think he can hold his own. I would like to see him given an opportunity. He only had that one cap in the World Cup warm-up games where he had like 15 minutes at the end, and unfortunately he ended up getting isolated, which swayed the game back into England's favour, and I think Gatland's used that as his scapegoat to not pick him. But I think there's a lot of upside with Williams. He's definitely improving as he's got consistent game time for the Ospreys, which is great. 26, so he's sneaky older than you'd expect, but definitely someone with a lot of ability. He scored a lot of tries for the Ospreys this season, and I think he's looked really good. So I'd like to maybe see him involved in the squad in the summer tour, and for Gatland to have a little bit of a closer look at him, because I think he's definitely got some ability. Another player who I think and expect he will look at in this summer tour is Ben Thomas. Ben Thomas has garnered quite a lot of attention recently. They were talking about him on Scrum 5, I believe. And I can understand why. Over the last 2 years, he's got better and better as a player, and he's been playing basically all at 12. Now, naturally, I think his position is generally been outside half, but Cardiff have been playing him at 12, and he's really, really grown into that spot. And now I would say for the centre partnerships in Cardiff, he's the number one pick specifically, especially at 12. He's actually had 2 caps for Wales already, which probably most people won't know. He got capped in the summer tour in 2021, which I think might have been that weird COVID one. He came on for Sheedy at 10. But like I say, he is someone Gatland has mentioned about playing outside half. But he's been playing 10 for Cardiff, and he's been playing 12 for Cardiff, and I think that's where his best position is. I've seen him play 10, and I don't think he controls the game as much as he makes a difference at 12. His criticism has always been his size and his power at 12, which I do understand, and that was an issue when he first started playing in that position. But I think it's definitely something he's built on recently. He runs some really smart lines. He seems to pick holes, and he runs hard. And he's not a big guy, 6 foot, 14 stone, but he does run with a lot of power for a guy of that size, and especially someone who's generally played their trade at 10. He's got a lot of ability to break tackles and bust holes, and with that extra kicking game, it takes pressure off your outside half and your scrum half. So that's something he could be looked at for. A 12 who can play outside half is not really something that we have at the moment within the squad. So that could be definitely a plus for Ben Thomas. I definitely think he deserves a look. So I wonder if Gatland will have a closer look at him in the summer. Another player I would like to take a closer look at is Eddie James. Now, he'll be familiar to Scarlets fans, but maybe not so familiar to other fans of the other regions. He is only 21, and he's sort of come onto the scene this season in the centre. I think the biggest problem for James has been this year, he's probably deserved to start more games, but because the Scarlets are so packed in that centre room, I mean, you've got Johnny Williams, Joe Roberts, and then you've also got John Davis and Scott Williams all in that place. So obviously he's learning off some great players, but they're taking minutes off him, unfortunately. And had he been playing all season, I think we could see him having a call-up pretty soon, because in every performance he's had this season, he's looked really, really good, really assured, really mature. He's a big guy at 12, but he's got pace, power. He's also got the footballing ability. Not been involved in the international setup yet, but he has been in the under-20s game. He's had 8 caps for the under-20s. He's also did like a little mini apprenticeship where he played in New Zealand for a few months. So that's obviously great for a young player's development, to be in amongst all that, where the absolute top level of the game. I really, really think that he's a player that he will play for Wales, in my opinion, if barring no serious injuries and stuff like that, because you can, when you just look at a player and you can see he's got all of the minerals, what it takes to be an international player, and he is sort of the type of player that we know Gatland likes, that big, burly inside centre, and he's, like I say, he's 21 and he's only going to fill out more. So he's really promising. I know there's a lot of hype in the Scarlets about him. I just would like to see Dwayne Peel give him a few more opportunities. He's talked highly of him, and I understand that he's got these other more senior players who are playing well or who are experienced. But I think he needs to give Eddie James an opportunity, because he's going to be his go-to man going forward in a couple of years. So I would get him in now and give him the experience. So Eddie James is someone who I'm really excited about. But for my last couple of picks, I'm going to go a little bit rogue. But I'm going to pick another 21-year-old. And I'm going to be cheeky and say, if the cap rule does go, I want Joe Hawkins. I mean, it's a no-brainer. Anyone who has any sort of idea of rugby would agree with this. He is our best option at centre. He is the best, most complete 12 we have, even with all these more senior guys who've had a lot more experience than him. He, to me, blows them out of the water with his ability. We saw him come in as a young man under Gatland, and Pivaki got his opportunity, and he instantly slotted into that Wales team and instantly made us better, instantly improved the attack, and instantly made us more fluid going wide. He has got everything you want. I always compare him to Gavin Henson. Maybe not the attitude, and maybe the boot is slightly less big as Henson, but he's got a big boot. He can play outside half. He's a strong ball carrier, 6 foot. He's big enough to hold his own in that inside centre channel and get us over the gain line. But he's got absolutely lovely hands. He glides around the pitch. He never sort of looks like he's sprinting that fast, but he's sort of floats around, similar to Henson. And I think he is. It's just so frustrating when it's something I've spoke about, and I suppose it's a conversation for a different video, but it's so frustrating that we've struggled at 12 for a long time, and we've seemed to have developed within the Ospreys a player who could just come in and settle in straight away and look like he knows what he's doing at international rugby with no issues. And because of the way the contracts, he was not offered a contract, or he was on an academy contract at the Ospreys, and what Exeter offered him was obviously clearly way better, and he had to go. And I don't blame him. It's happening to a lot of players, but I'm hoping that this 25 cap rule is, I think the days are numbered. And now I haven't heard anything particular, but all of the mood music, I know they've definitely said is something they're going to review, so I don't know how they can review it and see that it's working for Wales, because players are still leaving, but we're just not eligible to pick them anymore. So I think if my hope comes true, because I think the Six Nations failure has really shone a light on the fact that we need some more players within the setup and some more quality. And when you've got quality like this on the outside of Wales, ineligible to be played, someone who can just come in, slot in and improve the team instantly, I think it's just a no-brainer to get rid of it. Joe Hawkins would be my other player. If I could pick any player, that's who it would be. And then finally, we got Max Llewellyn. This guy is obviously a big, strong ball carrier. Had that one cap in the warm-up game, and I think he acquitted himself pretty good. Unfortunately, he's been at Gloucester and hasn't had the best of times. He's struggled to get consistently selected, though he's played a fair bit recently, and he's getting a bit more game time, and that's positive. Again, it's the 25 cap rule, so I'm not sure how that works with the timing of his cap, but he could be an option. It's someone who obviously Gatland liked the look of because he gave him an opportunity, and he can definitely be someone who gives us some go forward. He picks some really, really lovely running lines and finds holes with angles. That's something that he's really, really good at with his vision. Son of Garth Llewellyn, so he's obviously got that rugby lineage, and which is, always helps. But I think there's a lot of positivity around Max Llewellyn. I would like to see him, once his Gloucester contract comes up, for him to come back to Wales, find a home in one of the regions, get some consistent game time, and I definitely think he can be someone that could put his hands up for selection. So now that I've given the runners and riders, I'll give you my thoughts on what I think Gatland will do. And it sounds a bit boring and it sounds a bit obvious because he picked them in the Six Nations, but for now I think he'll probably go with Watkin and Roberts. The partnership in the France game looked like it had some promise. It was a good balance. For me, it lacked a little bit of pace, but I think they're two players who can create space for others, which is useful. They might help create space for each other as well. And two solid players who are defensively stern. And I think there's a lot to come from Roberts, and I do think that left foot kicking option is something that Gatland really likes the look of. So I think that's the partnership we might see with him going forward. I think Nick Tomkins is going to fall out of the team and potentially out of the squad. Not too sure, but that's what I would like to see. See us move forward now and give these other players a bit more of an opportunity. If it was up to me, I would go with Watkin, and I would actually go with Grady. I know some people are saying they're not sure if they see it in Grady, although he's got the physicality and the speed. I just think what he can offer is something that no one else can offer in that outside centre position. And though it might be a year or two of maybe pain in defence and mistakes. I think once he's settled and once he's got that position nailed down, he's got the ability to definitely be one of the better players definitely in Europe and maybe in the world, because he can do things. He just showed in that Italy game, just his pace to outpace everyone and just work rate, and his hunger to get over the gain line. His second efforts, once he hits contact, he doesn't just accept the tackle. He's driving, he's wriggling, and he's always seems to get an extra couple of yards. So he would be my selection at 13. If the 25 cap rule goes, though, obviously Hawkins comes straight in with no debate, and then you pick your poison around him. I would still stick with Grady. I think that centre partnership has got so much upside. Hawkins could be the steady and calming influence who could put us in the right positions, put players into space, carry when we need, and then you've got Mason Grady, who's just that pure athletic outside break, outside carries, coming off weak tacklers and stuff like that. So yeah, that's my thoughts. Let me know what you think in the comments. Subscribe. I'll catch you on the next one.